how the association football was emerged. Human beings, being human beings, have always invented new ways to turn their playful habits into serious activities. They love to play fish in water, so they started a sport called swimming. They love to boast about how strong their muscles are, and they started weightlifting. They are used to run from predators, so they made a sport out of it. In the same way, turns out human beings share cats' inexplicable love for round-shaped objects and playing with them because, of course, other shapes might be a little difficult to play with. And this is how, in the not-so-long history of human civilization, different cultures have developed different ways of playing with round-shaped objects. Some of these ancient games involved kicking the round-shaped objects without using hands. The Chinese started a game called Cujo, kicking the round-shaped objects into a net. Based on it, the Japanese started a game called Kemari. On the other side of the world, the Native Americans started Axakduk, based on similar premises. The indigenous people of Australia started a kicking game of their own. So did the Greek, so did the Romans in Europe, and so did the Turks in the Central Asia. But football, the way we know it today, is created in this little island. These people too apparently had nothing better to do with their spare times than kicking the round-shaped objects called balls. This playful habit was regulated by the British private schools largely during the 19th century as an ancestor of the different modern footballs, its descendants being the regular football, the rugby football, and the Gaelic football. In those times, football wasn't the working class business because the working class, or the proletariat as later London-based philosopher called them, had no time for such fancy activities. With the invention of railways, private schools played with one another more easily now, and the rules were unified even further. Different types of football began to diverge in a Darwinian evolution. Until 1863, however, no definite rules were yet established for the regular football, aka the association football, not to be mistaken with the Football Association, which was in fact the Association Football Association. In 1863, the Football Association was created in London, the first governing body of football. At that time, the association football was not still considered a profession by the Football Association. Actually, the Football Association had banned any sort of payment made to the players. Some clubs, however, broke the rule and paid the vigorous players to enhance the quality of the games. A huge load of money was at stake because of the large audience, some of whom may be also placing bets on the outcome of the games. It was a new way of making money, and the clubs were not going to let it go. In 1885, the Football Association, after 18 years of resistance, finally legalized the professional football, and that was the beginning of the Football League. Manchester was the birthplace of the first association football league in the world in 1888. The association football became more common and more internationally recognized because other European countries began to play it by the beginning of the 20th century. This is why the most of the world now uses the word football for this game, except for the Americans who call this one soccer and that one football, which is chiefly done with hands. Anyway, the first international tournament, called the World Cup, started in 1930 in Uruguay. The first World Cup wasn't really a World Cup, but chiefly an American Cup. The FIFA only persuaded 4 European countries to take part in the tournament in the final days of the deadline. England, the home to the modern football, was not among them, but the story of the World Cup is another story, and we will go through it in another episode. Until that time, stay safe.